You ever look at someone under intense pressure and wonder how they stay so clear, while other, equally smart people seem to just fragment? Well, forget everything you've heard about stress relief or coping. Today, we are not talking about feelings. We are decoding the physics of stress, the hidden structure that dictates whether you remain stable or you break.
This right here, this is the whole game. We've been taught to think of calm as a feeling, right? Something you have to chase, something you achieve with meditation or a vacation. But what if that's wrong? What if calm isn't an emotion at all, but a structural outcome? It's what's left over when the friction inside your own head drops to zero.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the signal of true alignment. Then we'll get into the three big sources of internal friction, the things that actually create that pressure you feel. After that, we'll look at the real cost of letting this stuff run in the background, understand the advantage of people who get this right, and then we'll wrap up with three sharp questions for you to look at your own internal wiring. Okay, let's get into the mechanics of this. It's so easy to blame the outside world for our stress, you know? The deadlines, the boss, the market. But the pressure that truly drains us, it almost always comes from a few specific, structural problems inside our own operating system. Let's break down the first one. First up, priority ambiguity. This is basically the mental tax you pay when your brain doesn't have a crystal clear, ranked list of what actually matters most. You see this everywhere. A founder torn between pleasing investors and sticking to their original vision. An employee balancing company loyalty with a better offer. When there's no clear number one, every single choice becomes a fresh, exhausting debate.
And here's the classic misdiagnosis. We tell ourselves, I'm so stressed, my workload is insane. But the real problem, the actual source of that strain, is your brain endlessly relitigating the same priorities. It's not the pile of tasks that's burning you out. It's the hitting, constant debate about which task is more important.
And that's the key. That internal debate, it creates this constant low-level static in your head. It's like a background app that's always running, draining your battery, pulling your focus, and leaving you exhausted without you even knowing why. Okay, the second source of friction, role collision. Look, we all wear different hats, right? You're a leader, a parent, a partner, a creative. The friction happens when the demands of those roles are in direct opposition. The part of you that has to make a tough analytical business decision collides head-on with the part of you that needs to be empathetic and supportive at home. And you guessed it, we misdiagnose this too. We call that exhaustion burnout. We blame overwork. But the real issue is the massive amount of energy it takes to run these two competing versions of yourself at the same time. You're not just overworked, you're internally at war. Think about it this way. Your mental energy isn't being used to move forward. It's being burned just to manage the tension between these conflicting identities. The system is basically fighting itself instead of dealing with the outside world.
Now, for our third source of friction, and this one is a bit of a curveball, cognitive entropy. This is the chaos, the anxiety that actually grows when you have too many options and no hard and fast principles to guide you. It's the paralysis of a blank canvas, the stress of infinite choice.
We like to romanticize this, don't we? We call it the burden of freedom. But really, it's just a structural failure. It's a lack of what you could call cognitive stabilizers. We think freedom means having a million options, but real, usable freedom comes from having the right constraints. And this is the solution. It's incredibly powerful. When you define your non-negotiables, your core principles, your hard lines, you instantly collapse the field of possible choices. You're not weighing a million options anymore, maybe just 2 or 3. That compression kills anticipatory anxiety and lets you act with speed and clarity. So what happens when all this stuff, the ambiguous priorities, the role collisions, the lack of constraints, is just left to run unchecked for years? Well, it's not pretty. It's not just a bad day. It's a slow, systemic failure. And the costs just pile on top of each other. It starts with chronic indecision. Then comes emotional volatility, where you're reacting to things you wouldn't normally react to. Your executive clarity, that ability to see the big picture, it just degrades. You start misreading your own body's signals, and pretty soon you're confusing the exhaustion from all this internal friction with the feeling of productive work. Which leads us to this huge question. Why is it so often the most competent, the most responsible people who seem to just break? Because here's the truth. It's almost never sudden. It's not a moment of weakness. It is the slow, predictable result of years of accumulated misunderstanding. It's what happens when you mistake internal structural friction for external pressure.
and you spend all your energy fighting the wrong enemy. Okay, so what's the other way? How do the people who stay stable operate differently? It's not because they're tougher or because they feel less stress. It's because they're focused on a completely different part of the problem. They have a structural advantage.
First, and this is so important, they stop trying to manage their feelings. They don't try to force themselves to be calm or stay positive. They understand that emotions are just the dashboard lights. They're signals, not the engine itself. So instead of messing with the dashboard, they pop the hood. They clarify the structure. They go upstream and work on the actual system, their values, their roles, their core principles. They tune the machine.
And when that internal structure is aligned, when the friction is gone, calm isn't something they have to work for. It's just what happens. It's the natural, automatic result of a well-built system. Calm simply follows.
So let's bring this home. Let's turn this entire analysis into a practical diagnostic. Here are 3 quiet but very direct questions to help you take a look at your own internal structure. The first one goes right to the heart of priority ambiguity. Not what you're supposed to care about, not what other people want you to care about. Deep down, when everything else is stripped away, what really matters? Second, a question that targets role collision. Where in your life are you trying to be 2 different people at once? Where are your internal identities fighting each other, burning energy that could be used for something else? And finally, this one addresses cognitive entropy. Notice the question isn't, what would make you happy? Or what would make you successful? It is what single choice, what principled stand, would eliminate 1,000 other decisions down the line? What choice would radically simplify your life, and in doing so, restore your clarity? I'll leave you with that.